Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, and this is the beginning of the Economic Development Committee session. It's a beautiful day outside. Well, we'll say it's a beautiful day. So I'm very excited to have the Economic Development Corporation here to present. And with that, we are short in time. I'm going to leave it to Mr. Bill Tompkins to please take off.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you. And Council President Glass, we were together yesterday, so we're back. And we were here a few weeks ago. Brad Stewart from our staff was here last week with the workforce group. And I understand we'll be back in April with the Department of Environmental Protection. So you'll get to see a lot of us. We have Patty Simonson and Christy Blake from our Strategic Initiative staff, and probably on the phone, or at least watching from London, is Nadia Khan. And our Strategic Initiatives group is the group that actually works through the plan, that will do updates, edits, and so forth, and coordinates with other departments. As you know, the plan, the Economic Development Strategic Plan, was approved on April 5th last year, and it's a 4-year plan, so this is evolving for us. A lot of what we're doing is new, and as I believe this may have been a quote from Council President Glass from last year, but the plan is both fluid and dynamic. So even though it was approved, we should feel free to work through it, work around it, make adjustments as necessary. And through the legislation, we can do a formal update July 1st of this year if we see that any major factors have changed. In internal discussions, we thought there's no reason why we wouldn't update the plan to reflect what's happening or new priorities or things that we want to emphasize. So we feel very comfortable doing that in terms of an edit or an update, not rewriting the plan, but instead putting more meat into it if there are areas that you have a particular interest in. There are 4 areas or priorities for this plan, and they were listed, I think in your packet you had both a copy of the entire plan, and then we're going to go through a summary of the recommendations, but we're going to highlight 7 of them today because there are 47 sets of recommendations. That's a lot. In addition, during different sessions, we will cover different topics based on your interest, your desire, whether it be transportation, whether it be the climate action plan, whether it be housing, because those are very meaty topics. And we believe that rather than trying to tackle all of this at one time, let's dig in as you see necessary or as the economy dictates, if that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea, so thank you.
Okay. Even though it's a 4-year plan, I think we talked informally about coming perhaps once a quarter to do briefs or updates on particular areas, and that way the dialogue continues. So if that's okay with you, that's what we'll do. All right. Let's start out with the first section, which is the first priority is accelerating innovation, economic drivers, and entrepreneurship. And within that, it includes several different initiatives around certain target clusters, including life sciences, hospitality, computer technology, cybersecurity, and the entrepreneurship ecosystem. And we're going to start off by talking a little bit about what we're doing to support the life sciences sector, but I'm going to go a little bit broader than that, and that has to do with our marketing campaigns. We launched in October a campaign called Be Next, which really covers everything we're doing. It's a brand campaign, but it's designed to also cover key sectors including hospitality, technology, life sciences, and so forth. And I invite you on March the 15th, if you would like, to join us at our board meeting, where we actually are going to walk through the entire sets of campaigns with live examples. But what we're proud about is that we have very active campaigns, not only in print, broadcast is coming, in terms of social media, in terms of live workshops, we are at conferences, including BIO as an example. So we're covering every aspect of those key categories, and we'll be doing that consistently throughout the year. It's reflected in our budget for this current year, And as you'll see in a few weeks, we are asking for an increased appropriation for next year, really to support strong marketing efforts to support economic development in Montgomery County. So from the perspective of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, we are well on our way towards ongoing campaigns, which we see running across multiple years. And it's not just the brand campaign. When you look at the individual sectors, as you'll see today, we have a lot of different activities that will support the things that at least MCEDC is responsible for. I will back up for a second. Over the last few weeks, we have met with Montgomery Planning, the Department of Transportation, the Department of Environmental Protection, Housing and Community Affairs, and as you saw last week, we were here with WorkSource Montgomery. You know they're co-located in our office. We meet with them regularly. We are meeting with the new head of permitting over the next week, and we have our ongoing meetings with the Commerce Cabinet, such that we're getting updates from them, and the next time we meet, all of that will be included in any plan that we update. But there's quite a bit going on, especially around housing and transportation and planning. Let me stop for a second. Any questions so far?
Thank you, Bill. I just wanted to know about the Be Next campaign.
Yes.
If you can tell me a bit more about how this idea came about and what you're promoting. I mean, I know
Sure.
it's like Be the Next one that comes here, but
Sure.
how many iterations, how long did it take, and who vetted this for
Sure.
final launching?
Sure. Well, if you go back several years, MCDC had talked about doing a comprehensive marketing campaign. It never launched, and then the pandemic hit. But when we put together the Economic Development Strategic Plan and our budget about this time last year, we decided that it was really important and really a priority, based on the research that we had done, to launch a marketing campaign as soon as possible. The county was known for not promoting itself and promoting its assets to the extent that it should. So we did an RFP, hired a marketing firm to work with us. We went out and did 1,500 interviews about this time last year. We met with key stakeholders, including, and we did focus groups, both with the business community. Members of the council were invited to participate, members of the executive branch, and other constituencies, to look at what made the most sense. Then the campaign was designed over the summer, and it launched October the 11th of 2022. That particular campaign is designed to run for a year, but we tested different concepts, tested different taglines, and you will see more of it yourselves, because it does go through stages, especially between now and April, when you'll see us at bus shelters, you'll see us on TV, you'll see radio, you will see the different components of the campaign as it evolves through the year.
Thank you, Mr. Tompkins, for that overview and for teeing up what we can expect to see. And because the campaign, I don't want to dwell too much on this, but you and I've spoken with your team about marketing and media. Can you break it down a little more simply for me? What does Be Next mean?
Be Next is about whether you are an
And if you can just maybe lower the microphone a little
Sure.
bit. There you go. Thank you.
Whether you are an entrepreneur, a business that is growing here, a business that is expanding here, we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be the next success in Montgomery County, because we've had so many successes. Here are examples. So we are highlighting different companies who have gone from maybe 10 employees to 1,000 in life sciences. But the real concept is you have the opportunity to succeed in Montgomery County, because we have all the resources that are going to allow you to be the next success.
And so you mentioned buses, and so whether it's ride-on or metro buses, those are operating in the county and in the region. So are we trying to instill some optimism amongst our business community that they can grow, or is that meant as a retention tool? I don't think it sounds like it's an attraction tool. So I'm just trying to understand it
So
better.
the Be Next campaign is an umbrella campaign. There are 4 components. One is to increase awareness of what is here across all constituencies, across all existing businesses. And then next, to position the county as an ideal place to be, which is attraction. Then to reinforce the perception that we have the resources you need to be successful here. And then to attract, retain, and grow businesses. So 3/4 of the money is being spent here in this market in the DMV to reinforce those key points. We are then testing 2 market areas. It's very expensive to run many of these campaigns. But from an attraction point of view, especially around life sciences, finance, and hospitality, we're testing the Boston market with this campaign to see what type of attraction we get or buzz we get, because it's a target market for us. And then the Northeast corridor, really between Philadelphia and New York. The reason we've selected those 2 markets is that they have the best cross-section of target sectors that are in our plan. If those appear to be successful, and that is not just in terms of reach and awareness, but contacts that we are getting, because we also have a call to action in many of the advertising components, then we will expand that into other markets. The Research Triangle, certain parts of California, which is an incredibly expensive market. So it's one step at a time. But Be Next is an umbrella campaign, and then we have awareness aspects and then call to action.
Great. And you mentioned 3/4 of the budget. What is the budget for the campaign?
For this particular campaign, it's just under $1 million spread over a year, which even when we talk with our board, I know we're live, they go, wow, that's a lot of money. It's really not. It probably should be a $3, $4, $5 million campaign.
Okay.
But going from 0 to something that's meaningful, you want to test it out because we haven't done this before.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Follow-up question on that one. This is Natalie. How do you measure success with all these pilot programs and marketing?
There are multiple ways in which you do it, and everybody wants to be the marketing expert. One is the awareness that you get. One is reach and frequency. Have you reached the audiences that you chose to based on targets that we set ahead of time? And at our March meeting, and then even in our last board meeting, we went through some of the metrics in terms of what we've seen so far. Another metric is based on the type of contacts, the number of contacts that we get coming through our website, and whether that's increased from what we did before to what we're doing now. Fortunately, we are getting lots of responses to the website itself. I caution you on that one because if you had a direct marketing campaign, you would expect hundreds and hundreds of responses. I think we've had over 150 with specific businesses who have called us or contacted us to say, we need your help, or we want to work with you. Other metrics that we look at relate to attendance at events. We will also do a post-awareness survey towards the end of this fiscal year. So we interviewed the 1,500 businesses before the campaign. We will interview 1,500 businesses towards the end of the year to see how their attitudes have changed, to see what actions have taken place in terms of their attitudes towards Montgomery County as a great place to do business. So there are multiple metrics that we have.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm going to continue on. And because I'm not watching the clock, I think we're going to skip down and walk you through another example of what's happening in terms of this active plan. And I want to reinforce the fact that these are things that MCEDC is primarily working on as opposed to our partners. So I think what we're going to hit next is something that we announced last week, a hospitality accelerator.
Great, good morning. So there are 3 advanced technology sectors that hold substantial promise for industry growth here in Montgomery County. I'm going to begin by highlighting an exciting project designed to support the hospitality industry. Over the past few months, we've laid the groundwork for a new hospitality tech accelerator. This initiative was discussed in both the Connecting the Dots report as well as the strategic plan. I'm happy to say, and Bill mentioned, we've launched it last week. Applications are open for the very first cohort. The Hospitality Tech Accelerator seeks to connect early growth stage startups from the Mid-Atlantic region with regional and global hospitality brands. This new initiative, MCEDC expects to welcome startups with innovative solutions to challenges ranging from rising operational costs and internal team communications to improving administrative efficiencies and strengthening security. Selected companies will participate in a series of workshops and pitch practice sessions over 10 weeks and receive industry-specific coaching before participating in an end-of-program pitch event in front of industry leaders. With the support of Bethesda Green's Innovation Lab and a deep bench of industry advisors who will work closely with the participating founders, the inaugural cohort will focus on some of the hospitality industry's top sustainability challenges, including energy efficiency and management, water conservation and management, and waste reduction and management. Qualified companies will have a validated minimum viable product, be well positioned to address the challenges described, and ideally be headquartered in Montgomery County or in the Mid-Atlantic region. So I guess moving on, as we continue through the presentation, I guess I'll pause. Any questions on the Hospitality Tech Accelerator?
I would say I'm so excited about it. I think Montgomery County, having all these different hotels in our county, we should be the place in the nation where hospitality is a thing. So I'm looking forward to your updates on this particular program, and it's awesome that you're doing it. So thank you.
Great. As we continue through the presentation, I'll note that quantum is also here and listed as a category of advanced technology. While we have included initiatives here in the presentation, we're going to dive deeper into this topic in a later session. So we'll move on.
And no, go ahead. I was going to say, okay. And moving on to talk about one of our other innovation economic drivers, and then to also touch a little bit on entrepreneurship and ecosystem building. Ecosystem building and supporting entrepreneurship is obviously not a new conversation that we're having here in Montgomery County. It's ongoing, and we all know that a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem is a key component of economic stability and growth. And I think the county has elements of a nurturing ecosystem, and there are other key places where we can work to close the gaps of the disconnection and create a stronger ecosystem. So one of the pieces that MCEDC has been working on in collaboration with the county, the state of Maryland, and with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, is to continue a partnership for the operation of the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, or NCCOE. Which would be a public-private collaboration to accelerate cybersecurity innovation and to promote some economic development opportunities. This official collaboration will be established and documented as part of a partnership intermediary agreement, or we call it a PIA for short, which is essentially a memorandum of understanding with a nonprofit organization to engage in academic and industry tech transfer and licensing opportunities. So MCEDC will serve as the designated representative on behalf of the county in coordination with the county executive's office to carry out the implementation of this partnership intermediary agreement. And one of the key components of the PIA, or the Partnership Intermediary Agreement, is that we will be working with NCCOE to launch a Cybersecurity Connections initiative, which will be bridging the gap between some of their larger cybersecurity producers and industry professionals that they already work with and connecting them with small businesses in the county. So that provides an opportunity not only for mentorship and networking connections, but also for NCCOE to gain a better understanding of industry needs in cybersecurity, and therefore be able to produce more research and develop more practical solutions that companies here in Montgomery County, and abroad, but hopefully here in Montgomery County can utilize to expand their business and to grow, from smaller businesses to larger businesses. And that, I think that collaboration provides an opportunity to accelerate some of those tech transfer opportunities, as well as provides a broader resource for the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
I love all that. My question is mostly on workforce development and this, how you're making sure that we're developing talent in Montgomery County and keeping that talent in Montgomery County. And I'm linking that question with the issues that you're raising, but also on the hospitality industry. We should be the place where we're developing the next generation of hospitality services in Montgomery County, especially having merit here, for example. So as you're presenting, I want to have a big focus on that and your connections with NCPS. And I have, my very first session on economic development with these beautiful people was highlighting the need of having NCPS really ensure kids have the tools that they need to succeed in state Montgomery County. So everything that you're saying, just think about that, because that's like on top of my mind.
Yeah, and I
So-
will note too that one of the key components of the implementation of the PIA is also to engage with academic institutions to talk about these very things. So as part of the exchange with some of the larger industry connections that NCCO has, also with the smaller businesses, we'll be able to gather that industry information and then therefore transfer that and have conversations with academia.
Let me also say that we're going to cover the answer to your question in the next example that we go through. So why don't we move to that? So back in, I'm sorry, was there another question before we move forward?
Yeah, I was just, first of all, thank you. I'm glad we're having this conversation. Sorry I was a few minutes late, but this is the whole idea when we passed and I had introduced the Economic Development Strategic Plan, so we could have one plan to operate off of that the council and the executive and MCEDC and all of our partners are working together on, so that's real positive. I have a few more specific questions that I'll wait for the appropriate time at the end, but on the last conversation that we were just having, we made significant changes at the council at the end of the last session related to the SBIR program, and we worked in conjunction with the executive branch on trying to make tweaks to that program, which is really successful, but to take it to the next level, one, to broaden it, to create more opportunities, but two, to make sure that we were focusing a little bit more on earlier stage companies, which the prior iteration of that was a little bit tilted towards later stage companies that probably didn't need our help as much, that had other opportunities and access to other resources, and we wanted to get to the folks who needed it the most with limited resources. I just wanted to see if you had started to feel, see, identify any changes in the work that you're doing with the PIA or otherwise, talking to businesses or talking to partners about those changes and whether or not they're making an impact.
So we haven't talked specifically about the matching grant program with regard to the PIA, but we are aware of those changes and have been working closely with the county executive's office to begin starting to market those to specific entrepreneurs that we think it would be helpful for. We also have a partnership with TEDCO on one of their SBIR prep programs, and so there's an opportunity for us to engage with the Montgomery County businesses that participate in that to see if they're eligible candidates for the matching grant program as well. So that's just one piece of where we would be working to promote that program.
Sounds good, but I think this is a really key area because we are, as far as I know, the only local jurisdiction that does a match of this kind. Every other jurisdiction that does it is a state, and so it highlights the reason why we are not a leader in biohealth by accident. We're a leader because we've been intentional in focusing on this growth industry, and I think we've got to sell that harder. So as we talk about Be the Next, I think we can talk about Be the Next company that got one of these grants that went from 10 to 1,000, as you talked about earlier, so that we can show that it's not just companies that happen to accidentally, organically grow. They grew because they had a county government that invested in them. They had a community that believed in them. They had access to the resources that they needed to be successful. And so I want to put a pin in that and hope that you will really lean in that as well. But I'll yield back on that.
If I can make a comment on that, we have been very engaged in that, and actually as part of the Be Next campaign, some of the companies that we are highlighting are not only the ones that have gone through that program, but also we have a company that actually started with one of our incubators and now has hundreds of millions of dollars in, not market cap, but in venture capital. But with the new program, we did launch it, I want to say about 6 weeks ago. I think there was a little glitch in this way in which the legislation was written that we were trying to iron out in terms of businesses or institutions who had already applied for grants, and the time period was not as clear as it needed to be. So we're making adjustments such that those who had already applied will also be able to continue through the program. But it is very active, and we're tracking the numbers based on where we were 2 years ago, last year, and we came before the council at least once, if not twice, last year before you did pass the changes to the program.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Friedson's point about the matching grant. I think it's important to make sure that we're not reaching the same people all the time. And we've learned, throughout the COVID rollout that we don't know the people who we don't know. And so just, I'm sure you'll keep that in mind as you roll that out. Thank you.
That's a great comment. The last thing I'll say on this is that on marketing, the best marketing is when you tell the story and when you emphasize those successful stories. That should be your focus. We were intentional doing this, and this is what happened because of our intention, and then you highlight that company. That's all you need to do, really. Anyway, you can continue.
Okay, we'll move on to talk about workforce. Back in, I think it was August, or actually June of 2021, there was an MOU that was signed between Montgomery County government, Montgomery College, and USG. And we decided to expand that, and was focusing on life sciences. But back to your point about what are the needs of the broad sector of businesses that we focus on, whether it be hospitality, life sciences, technology, and so forth, we decided to expand it. And we have included and actually had a convening of a meeting in December with the heads of USG, Montgomery College, representatives from Montgomery County Government, WorkSource Montgomery, and Montgomery County Public Schools to make sure that we have complete alignment and collaboration from A to Z to look at all of the workforce programs that are developing from the time you're in kindergarten all the way through graduate school. And we are focusing on 3 key industries to do tests to see if the change in programming across all of those institutions really help us with the pipeline of talent that is here, matched with what employers are saying they need. So it's a very active and dynamic program. To get all the heads of those organizations in one room at the same time to collaborate was not easy, but I think we are going to be very successful. It is very data-driven. So we're looking at what the gaps are in 5 or 6 key industries with 3 particular programs to see if we can actually move the needle. In terms of making sure that this pipeline stays here close to or in Montgomery County is something that we haven't figured out exactly the best way to do it, but we know we have our work cut out for us because we have a larger percentage of graduates who leave Montgomery County to go to other sectors or other markets than we did years ago, than we did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So how do we retain more of that talent here? And we think part of that has to do with getting employers much more engaged directly with the institutions such that that marriage takes place before they've made a decision about a job.
Bill, on this, as you know, I call on a joint session between Economic Development and Education Committee because they are, they have Montgomery College and all these educational institutions under their purview. The next session that we're going to have with the Education Committee and us should be happening pretty soon, and I'm expecting a conversation on this very topic then with more details, how we're tracking, how we're measuring, what are the challenges, and what we as a council should be doing to make sure that we streamline processes and we develop talent that can stay here. I'm interested in understanding the issue of how we can give more capital to the private sector that is being built in Montgomery County and can grow and stay in Montgomery County. So I look forward to a more detailed conversation on that very soon. Okay, thank you.
We will be happy to do that. And one of the things that I also want to point out that we should not limit ourselves to what happens here in Montgomery County, that we have a very rich region, and there's no reason why we should not be recruiting the talent from the university systems across the region. We don't have a university that is located here. We do claim the College Park, by the way. We just moved the border a little bit, but whether it's Georgetown University or other universities, Howard University and so forth, especially as they have programs for our target industries, we believe that we have to go outside of the county at the same time.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, and thank you for that. I think that's really important, recruitment of talent, and not only retention of the students we have, but recruitment. I just wanted to mention that the part. I think the partnership's great. I think it's something that we needed to do for a long time, and I think that your role in that partnership is the conduit with the employers. And in this endeavor, I want to make sure that we always keep the employers front and center, and to make sure that we know their needs of today, but more importantly, what they're envisioning their future needs are. So thank you.
As part of the follow-up to the meeting that we had in December, while the institutions have the responsibility for picking 3 programs, we have agreed to take on the responsibility for working with each of those institutions that have relationships with employers today, rather than reinventing the wheel, because part of their challenge was that they didn't see that connection being as strong. Why weren't employers more engaged? And so MCEDC, because we're working with businesses every day, are taking the list of advisory boards and others who are working with USG or Montgomery College or even the school system, and figuring out why and how we get them to participate in the programs or to be more vocal about what's working or not working.
Thank you. And I mentioned at our joint session, it needs to be easy for the employer. They have to be able to enter the educational system in an easy, one-stop shop way. So as this moves forward, I think that one of the reasons why employers may not have been involved in the past is that it just takes a lot of time. And so ease of entry would be great.
Okay, we'll go on to our next example.
So highlighting priority C, which talks quite a bit about some of these heavier topics that Bill said we would revisit in much more detail at other times. I did want to highlight the key component of transportation being a key piece to economic development, and a project that we're working on that's related a little bit to transportation, but also to environmental sustainability. A healthy transportation infrastructure is going to facilitate movement, obviously, of residents to employment centers, and create efficient and affordable access to key employment centers and then other amenities around in the county. But I think it's also important to highlight that a healthy transportation plan can also help to reduce some of the greenhouse gas emissions and other things that might be hindering a more sustainable energy program in the county. And so MCEDC has been partnering with One Montgomery Green and Bethesda Green to implement a program called the Wheaton Sustainable Innovation Zone. And so in partnership with One Montgomery Green and Bethesda Green, we received a Department of Energy Inclusive Energy Innovation Prize, that's a mouthful, for $200,000 to implement the Wheaton Sustainable Innovation Zone. And so working with One Montgomery Green from a community outreach perspective and Bethesda Green from their innovation and entrepreneurship perspective, we are working on joint sustainability efforts for businesses to promote entrepreneurship, and then also to work on job creation within this Sustainable Innovation Zone. This is a model that we partnered with another organization called Global Urban Development on. They were the initiators of the concept of a Sustainable Innovation Zone that's framed around 4 goals. Green savings, which is finding savings opportunities for residents and businesses to utilize renewable resources and sustainability measures to reduce costs. Green opportunities is finding opportunities for job creation within the sustainability space. Green talent, which is obviously the workforce component, to creating more workforce opportunities within the sustainability space. And then the key component to the transportation infrastructure is working on green places. So that's working in partnership with obviously the County Department of Transportation and other partners to establish like EV charging stations, increase the percentage of buses that are electric in the area. Some of that is in installing new rain gardens to mitigate stormwater pollution. These are just examples of things that we would be working on within this project to facilitate some of those key components to creating a more sustainable transportation system but also as part of a broader initiative to bring together entrepreneurship, business development, and sustainability.
With no shame, I say that this is the most exciting slide of the entire presentation, just because you highlight the Wheaton Sustainable Innovation Zone, which I'm actually highly familiar with, working closely with Wendy, who manages OMG. I had a meeting with her last week, and I really want to make sure, besides the whole transportation related, topic that you mentioned, we're going to have a town hall on transportation infrastructure in Wheaton next week at the Wheaton Library, 6:30 p.m., February 22nd. You're all welcome to come. DOT will be there, SHA will be there, OMG will be there. And then making sure that people understand that when we talked about access in terms of walkability, making sure that people can walk, bike, roll, take transit, and drive to businesses, that's a great thing for businesses too. And I want to make sure that, as I share with Wendy, that having those connections and programs in high schools, developing the next generation of green jobs and educating kids on those jobs is critical. And I've been meeting with different high schools in my district, including Kennedy High School, Wheaton High School, and they don't have a partnership with a company, that can actually help develop this next generation. So I'm wondering, and we briefly talked about this in our previous joint committee session with the Education Committee, how can we be more proactive in connecting companies, big companies, with high schools, and in this case, anything that deals with green jobs in Wheaton, just because of this program, will make sense. So that's something that I would love to follow up with you. I did hear from some folks that sometimes different high schools contact the same company, and it overwhelms the company. So I think we need somebody to really be strategic and say, maybe this high school should be connected with Marriott, and this other high school we should be connected to, this other company, based on strategic goals. In Wheaton, just because of this, I think it has to be about sustainability. To me, that's common sense. I just wanted to share that, and I'm going to lead to my Council President Glass.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. So this is exciting, right? And I am glad that the district council member is so excited about this project, which means you're off to a good start. The question I have, though, is how does this type of program fit within MCEDC, right? So clearly someone from Montgomery Green or another outside nonprofit or other organization comes and wants to collaborate, and then you win the contract, $200,000 I heard, right, the award. How do you then structure it internally?
Each deal or each situation is structured a little bit differently, and it depends on whether we're the lead partner or a supporting partner. So if we're the lead partner, then we put together a team. Actually, in both cases, we put together a team within MCEDC, and it's typically in our strategic initiatives group, along with a key representative from each of the partners that we have. We put a project management system together with goals, a business plan, and then once the funds, if it requires funds, in some cases we may or may not have funds coming in, then we roll that out with the partners that we have. And each partner is given a set of responsibilities for implementing the plan, and then when it's over, this one started, about 6 months ago? No, it started last June, I think it was, a year ago. But it actually launched in, I think, June of 2022.
And is MCEDC the lead partner here?
So it might be helpful if I can expand on the history of how we actually got the federal funding, if that's helpful.
I'm less interested in that, right? What I'm more interested in is, there's lack of a better way to say it, is mission creep, quite frankly. In that MCEDC, from my perspective, has a set responsibility of attraction and retention, and making sure that our business community has the support that they need, and that we can bring in top talent and top companies from around the country. And a program like this, whose merits the merits of which I do not disagree with at all. But we have DEP, we have DOT, we have other nonprofit partners throughout the county and throughout the region that are doing bits and parts of this. And the concern I have is that when more time and staff are dedicated to some of these exciting projects, it detracts from what I view as maybe the core mission. And so that's why I asked how this is operationalized.
Sure. I'm going to go back for a second. This is presented in the context of the larger plan. So 95% of what happens with the Economic Development Strategic Plan as it relates to transportation and environmental sustainability is not work that we do. Actually, 98% is not. The reason we picked this one is because this started out with our federal engagement strategy in terms of transitioning federal resources into active business development in terms of entrepreneurship. So yes, you could argue that it is CREEP, but it evolved. And once we applied for an earlier loan, which we did not get or grant, this one was granted based on the application that we originally did for federal engagement, our federal engagement program.
Sure.
So we acknowledge that if we were going to do more of this over time, then we would be expanding our responsibilities. So we're only doing about 2 of these, where we could be doing 10.
Okay, so I appreciate the context, and again, I'll say for the third time, important work, right? Just making sure that the situational awareness, the landscape analysis, that as you engage in that, these are time-sensitive, time constraints, budget constraints, and that there are other partners doing similar work, and not making sure we don't cross-current here. So, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to pile on here. I was thinking the exact same thing, so I think it's important. And I was going to mention later on, but perhaps it's related here. When we developed the Economic Development Strategic Plan, there was 2 aspects of it that were the largest aspects of conversation. One was economic development is bigger than just MCEDC, and so is it reasonable to have MCEDC in charge? And we decided, yes, it is, but we recognize that there are certain aspects of economic development that we note that MCEDC will not be primarily responsible for, that it could be in the plan, but we would know who's on first, who's responsible for what. We know that great education, particularly great public education, critical to economic development. We also know that that's not MCEDC's job. We know that a great transportation sector, essential to a thriving economy, not really MCEDC's job. We know that housing and affordability of housing, critical to recruiting talent to make the economy work, not really MCEDC's job. And so I think it's important, because that was part of that conversation, that continue to be part of the conversation. And I think avoiding the temptation to get involved in everything is essential, because I think we do need to focus and make sure that we understand who's primarily responsible for what. The second piece was metrics, which I think is still a work in progress. And my view is, for these briefings and for everything that MCEDC takes on, it should be tied to a specific metric that's specifically tied to MCEDC that is measurable. And that isn't just a number, which isn't really a metric. It's a number in the context of a target, which you then can judge yourself. You can hold yourself accountable to it. That's, a number without context is not measurable. It's just a number. A number in the context of a target is measurable, because you can measure where are you in relation to where you had set out to be. So I think while opportunities present themselves as they come up, I think it's important that where appropriate, they get passed off to the right place, because I don't know what the metric would be for some of these initiatives based on the strategic plan, based on MCEDC's core function and core job. So so I just wanted to note that. You can respond to that, and then the next piece of it that is not directly tied to this, but is tied to that broader question and issue, is on better understanding who is responsible or how much staff time is responsible for some of these initiatives, how much staff time is responsible for recruitment activities, as you heard the council president talking about earlier, how much of this is recruitment, how much staff time personnel is responsible for retention activities. And those are broad dynamics because retention is a big category, but I think it would be helpful to better understand that.
Before we continue, because I want to make sure we're on track, I have the same request at the end of the council member Andrew Friedson is addressing. I left him to the end of his presentation, so maybe we can please move on, because I know you have a hard stop too. You can respond and then continue with the presentation.
Sure. Let me go back to your first comment about the responsibilities that others have. When I talked about the meetings that we have, we look at ourselves as conveners of other parts of the plan, so that we are not the experts on transportation or housing. And in meeting with those organizations, we walked through this plan, where they are, and decided that Chris Conklin will be the one who will be here to talk about the transportation component of the Economic Development Strategic Plan. And so they are pulling together their updates, their reports as to where they are. And whenever you want, other than today, they are happy to come before you to do a deeper dive on those particular aspects of the plan. So we're not trying to be experts in those areas, but instead to be their partners to make sure that they stay on track. In terms of metrics, there were 4 or 5 pages of metrics that are in the report that we've looked at to make sure that they still make sense. The benchmarks for every one of the metrics that you see there are January 1st of 2022. And our research department, our research person, is in the process of completing the actual benchmark, whether it's a number or a place in time. And then we are updating those on a quarterly basis. So in about 3 weeks, that report will be complete. We also have something that's a little bit controversial called a RACI chart that was in the original plan, and that does list who is the primary individual or organization for implementing the different components of the strategic plan. So we stripped it out for today.
Yeah, I just asked that the quarterly report get shared with the council as well as the executive when it's ready.
Absolutely. We assumed that we would just, the next time we come back,
They're going to
just
come here every quarter.
include it.
I don't think it needs to wait for the meeting, though. I think we can just get it when it's ready, and then whenever the chair is ready to schedule a meeting, you then can talk about it. I think it would be
We'll do that. I'm going to let Councilmember Sales ask the question, and then I'm going to ask committee members to please hold your questions until the end. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did have just a follow-up question, because I did see all of the metrics that were included here, but didn't see any goals towards these metrics, like, annual capital dollars invested in county infrastructure. Do we have a dollar amount that we are achieving towards the number of attracted, retained, and new businesses started that are small, woman, and minority owned? Do we have this year's benchmarks, and are we trying to increase it by 2%, 5%? So it would be helpful to also ensure that there are goals associated with this, and with the accessibility and the usage of technology. I would hope that this is something that could be created into a dashboard. Since we know that quarterly reports are coming, I think it would be an attractive way to show businesses, new, current, and emerging businesses, where the trends are going, in what areas, where there's opportunities for improvement. So getting a more visual idea of our metrics and what we're trying to attain would be helpful in the next iteration of sharing this information, because these are all good metrics, everything that we should be looking at. I just want to make sure that we're doing measurable iterations as we continue to see our improvements.
Absolutely. In some cases, that work is not complete because we do have goals. To your point, are we going for 2% or 10% or 5%? And that's been a debate where we sometimes don't know what that number should be. And so collectively, if you're talking about housing, we know that we're short X number of housing starts per year and that we're falling behind, but we are still moving in the right direction. So it depends on the metric. In some cases, we have specific goals, but in other cases, we have to continue to work on that. So,
And just like the campaign, we're trying to be aspirational. We should be just as aspirational in our endeavors to achieve the highest in a lot of these areas, or just set some benchmarks so that we can all be shared in this mission forward.
we'll get that out to you. It will, honestly speaking, it will be about 3 or 4 weeks before it's complete.
That's perfectly fine. Thank you,
Okay.
Bill.
So I'm going to highlight the last two so that we can open it up and really talk about access to capital and community wealth building together. One of the things that does fall into our work plan and into this plan is figuring out how to get two things. How to get more institutions focused on providing access to capital to the businesses that are here. So we've been convening financial institutions, including government institutions, whether it be the SBA. There's a program that was already established through the county and M&T Bank that we are going to continue with in terms of workshops that actually bring businesses together to prepare to be able to apply for loans or grants. We are working with Harbor Bank. So we have a number of banks and financial institutions, CDFIs, and government institutions that we regularly convene to figure out what programs they actually have, and then how is that information getting communicated to potential businesses to take advantage of those financial opportunities. At the same time, we are working on training sessions to make sure that businesses are prepared to go after that capital. So in a lot of instances, a business does not have a business plan, or they're not up to date with their taxes, or they know what they're going to do with the money, but they don't know how to apply for it. So we are coming at both angles to make sure that we can say, these are the institutions that we're working with, here's how you go about it, whether you're looking for venture capital, whether you're looking for a loan, whether you're looking for a grant, and putting those resources together under a broad umbrella that we monitor, and we want to continue to expand that over time. An example of what we ourselves are doing is the ACE loan program, which we launched in September. We got $1.9 million from the state of Maryland to provide loans primarily to small, women, minority-owned businesses. We've loaned out, since we announced the launch, $144,000 has been approved. We have another couple of $100,000 in the pipeline. Those loans can be anywhere from $5,000 to $250,000. So it's a live example of where we actually are ourselves putting money on the table through a program that did already exist. We, based on the success rate we're seeing, we will go through that $1.9 million probably sometime next summer, and we've already asked for another $3 million. Because we think that's going to be a very successful program. It actually provides direct access to capital. It does put us in the banking business. But the good news is that the financial risks are covered by the state of Maryland, not MCDC.
Is that the end of the presentation?
stop,
Thank you
yes.
so much. I just want to make sure that we end with clear expectations. At the end of the day, we are held accountable for the work you guys are doing. And I'm looking at your strategic plan, and on circle page 46, I'm looking at the chart. I really want to see how your budget aligns with this document. I think you should, first of all, update the timetable that you have, even include, budget and staff hours that you're dedicating for each item. And so the next time you present to us, and this should be ongoing, we should see how progress is being done. That should be absolutely clear. Do you have another question?
I want to piggyback on Councilmember Sales, the dashboard and what that looks like once the metrics are established. But I think that part of the discussion about who's responsible for what, I think that it's very important to clarify. I would like to see that in terms of the priorities and objectives, just add a column in terms of who's responsible to do this, because I think that this partnership or this structure with the county government doing one thing MCEDC doing another thing, that's confusing already. And I think that I think that having one strategic plan is really important. But I think it would be great to clarify in a very clear visual way who does what.
Sure. I think it's page 46 of the original plan, which we will update, and that goes back to the RACI chart, key stakeholders, and it's an R, A, C, or I, which needs to be fine-tuned, responsible, accountable, informed, and communicated to. The R is what counts, and in some cases it's more than one entity. So we will fine-tune that and update that chart with more detail. But it is there. That was our first cut at it, and we can provide additional detail to be more specific.
Yeah, so and thank you, and I looked through that. I think the issue of matching, we've got it's not a one-to-one match in terms of, you know, the specific objective, the specific metric, and who's doing it versus the priorities listed on 46. I think it provides the table on page 46 is great. How does that relate to the specific metric?
Okay.
Versus the
we'll
global
put the metrics
area.
beside that, or we'll figure out how to do that so that it is clear.
That's great.
When we do our budget, actually for the first time last year, we actually broke our budget down to each of our work plan initiatives. So to be clear, you've got the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which is what we're here talking about today, and then you have MCEDC's work plan and our budget appropriation, which is about $6 million, hopefully to go up. So we have broken down every one of our initiatives and tied the dollars to how they match the initiatives, and that's what you'll see when we do our budget.
That would be great.
Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, again, thank you for all of the work. I know we're just getting a snippet of the work that MCEDC does every day. And so just to follow up on some of the components in this strategic plan, you know, I noticed even on the MCEDC's website that we talk about the ag reserve, but we don't talk about the economic opportunities and agribusiness opportunities. It's 93,000 acres. It's part of the emerging industries that you know, we should be able to ensure that they're part of the next and they're included in amplifying everything that they're doing, not just up county, but as an incredible resource to attract new businesses, especially with the hospitality endeavors, investments that are being made. It would be really helpful to learn more about what this body sees as an opportunity, how we're leveraging the ag reserve and how that is going to be supported in this Be Next endeavor.
I can give you a 30-second
Please.
short answer. Historically, we have not. Although we have met with Jeremy Chris, he's part of our Commerce Cabinet. The majority of the work that is done from an economic development point of view for the Ag Reserve tends to fall into Visit Montgomery. If you look at all the breweries that are there, if you look at all the tours that you can do, whether it be, this is Black History Month, lots and lots of things that tend to fall into that area. And so we have deferred to them. It has not been a priority, but we can update the comprehensive effort in terms of how that makes Montgomery County stand.
Yes, because now Visit Montgomery is going to be under our purview, so
Right.
it would be nice to even have a joint discussion about. So I think our Madam Chair will brief us on some upcoming
Sure.
exciting collaborations. So I'm glad that there are going to be more efforts to ensure that we are leveraging this up-county gem and sharing it with not just residents in our county, but across the region. I also had another question. We talked about the importance of our education and preparing the future workforce. I don't see MCPS as a measure, as you know, one of the key metrics in the appendix It references academic institutions, but given that half of our budget is spent on developing the workforce pipeline, what is the vision for integrating them into your work plan, and how is the board currently working with the MCPS leadership, the president of the colleges in our region? I mean, we have all of the state colleges right here in our backyard, and so how are we leveraging these resources strategically?
Let me start out with MCPS. They were not in part of the original plan. So when we updated what we're calling the expanded MOU, we brought them to the table. They were with us in December. We worked closely with Dr. McKnight. It's a broad category to tackle, first of all. Very complex. So they are now at the table.
Awesome.
In terms of how we engage ourselves, there are a number of ways. I sit on the board of USG, Board of Advisors. I should be clear about that. In terms of, I think it's, I'll have to check my calendar, but on March, there's a date in March where we are bringing 25 businesses to meet with Dr. McKnight to talk about the budget and why it's important for economic development and where your money is going and why that is important as an economic driver. I'm sorry I don't have the date, but it's happening. 25 businesses to come in and get them to link. So there are multiple ways in which we're doing it. I'll be careful what I say, but I think when you see the nominations for our board vacancies, it's quite possible that you will see the head of an academic institution on that list. So I think there are ways in which we are very clearly beginning to get into that area. And of course, we are partners with Worksource Montgomery. I should clarify, Worksource Montgomery has very specific responsibilities, as you well know. Workforce development goes from here to there. And so getting our hands around it as a county in terms of how we manage that is a challenge, but I think we're making steps in the right direction.
Okay, and one last question. Thank you. I know that individual council members have been very public about desiring a more business-friendly environment and are poised to propose pieces of legislation to accomplish this. For instance, I intend to propose legislation to expand current ZTAs that would ease regulations beyond categories of businesses that are currently allowed. How are you resourced to help us with our work as individuals and as partners in this effort?
I would start by saying, tell us what you want, and then we'll figure out how to do it. I have to be honest with you. I don't know how to do it any differently. We worked with Councilmember Friedson on the ZTA that went through last year.
Okay.
When you need something or want something, we'll be honest with you about whether we think it falls into our wheelhouse or where those resources are. So I think we have to take them one at a time. If you look at Council President's Glass's memo on the economic development priorities, I think it was dated February the 6th. We are meeting to discuss that in more detail in a week or so. So it just depends on what your need or interest is, and so we don't have a formula for addressing that. But I think we are fairly responsive.
Okay. Yeah, it would be helpful. Thank you. Looking forward to it. I yield.
Before I let the Council President Glass make his comment, I would announce that I have meetings with the Revenue Authority and also with Visit Montgomery, and there will be a work session in this committee, most likely in April, no later than May, but I'm actually shooting for April, talking about agrotourism. So you're welcome to come. You won't be the speaker, but you're welcome to come.
That's even better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank MCEDC, you all, for being here and engaging in what I think is a really good conversation. And the reason that I worked with my colleagues to create the Economic Development Committee was to have a space where we could engage in these conversations. And Mr. Tompkins, your offer to come quarterly is exactly why we have this committee, so that we do more than a semi-annual check-in where we all have time constraints. We go through the PowerPoint presentation, we say thank you, and we go to other meetings, but to have deeper, richer conversations about where you're coming from, us questioning concerns we might have, and you've heard that. And this is healthy because we ask the questions because we want you to succeed. We need you to succeed. The ecosystem that we have here in Montgomery County is predicated on a strong business sector. And that is the focal point of this discussion, how we can do more. You've laid out, I appreciate the SWOT analysis. I like the way that was listed in the packet or in your materials. Two things I just want to highlight. One of them, it says better partnerships with the state for economic growth opportunities. I'm glad that Governor Moore will be in North Bethesda tomorrow. I suspect we'll see you. We will all be there to talk about health computing and the future of North Bethesda. And so I'm glad that we are on his radar, that Montgomery County is on his radar, and particularly this geographic region, which has a lot of potential to it. ARPA-H and other things. I said it out loud. We're going to continue saying it out loud. Have lots of opportunities. One other thing that you listed as an opportunity, and this goes back to Councilmember Sales' point, or one of her points. You list the opportunity of laws, regulations to foster and encourage the clean tech sector. As the chair of the Environment Committee, would love to learn about what the landscape analysis is there, right? As we look to attract that sector, I look to you to tell us what is emerging. What do we need to do here? And getting back to the central point of roles and responsibilities, that's what I'm looking to you for.
Okay.
Share with us what is emerging around the country and what we need to do here to attract those. And conversely, to retain people, right? What we need to do to retain businesses as well. And so some of these other things, the initiatives, they're great. Having the support of district council members for those initiatives is great. But I will continue engaging with you to learn about things that you're watching and trends that are emerging and how we can best position ourselves. And so appreciate this conversation. Look forward to our follow-up discussion about my economic development goals. And this is good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you. I followed the strategic plan in a prior life all along the way, so it's nice to be here and talk about it. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jake Weissman from the County Executive's Office, such a strong partner for the business community. And I just wanted to highlight your very last bullet on your very last slide, the no wrong door policy. I think that that's something that every department needs to take that to heart, including the county council and all of our constituent service work that we do. We need to make sure that businesses know when they contact Montgomery County, regardless of who they contact, the answer is sure, how can we help? So thank you for highlighting that.
Absolutely. Please don't take this the wrong way. I wish it were only quarterly that we were here. You will see us here as you are, probably every month. So for different reasons, to advance economic development. And I appreciate the fact that this committee and the council as a whole has made economic development a priority for Montgomery County. It is absolutely essential. I have thanked Councilmember Friedson multiple times for giving us this responsibility, for pulling it together. And I encourage you to challenge us to make sure that we do stay focused, because we don't have all the answers, and we've got some smart people in front of us, talking about you, to make sure that we've got the best minds keeping us on track.
We'll take that challenge. Oh, Andrew.
No good deed goes unpunished. You should have saved your thank you till the end. I'm not done yet. Just kidding. Echo the points of Mr. Weissman. Really important to have a partner here, I know plays a significant role in guiding your work with the executive branch and with other outside agencies, and so we rely on that partnership. I want to note the ACE loan program that came about thanks to Councilmember Balcom as a chamber leader with her chamber colleagues raising that in one of our work groups during COVID. We had talked about that, and I want to acknowledge Judy Stevenson then coming to me and she and I working together to advocate at the state where we finally cracked through. We had been trying to get that funding and get that authorization. It didn't happen for a while, and then we were able to keep at it. But that only happened because we were meeting with our partners in the business community who raised a concern, said, why don't we have this? And then working together between the executive branch and the council to advocate at the state. So I note that to say that is the model that we need to be doing more of. I think that this Economic Development Strategic Plan was intended to facilitate more of that type of collaboration and that type of engagement, starting with the business community, which is where this is intended to start, hearing from the people and, in the community of what their needs actually are and how we can better serve them, and then holding ourselves accountable, operationalizing what we say we're going to do to actually make something happen. So I just wanted to note that. A couple points. One, I think the mission creep issue is an important one. I hope that's a takeaway from this conversation. I appreciate the earlier conversations about all the other entities and organizations, and we don't want to have silos, but we want to make sure we know whose job is what and who's responsible for what. And I think there's a balance between eliminating silos and everybody doing everything. And we can't have a situation, you can't have a basketball team where everybody shoots. Somebody's got to pass. Somebody's got to be there to rebound. Somebody's got to play defense. And, we need to figure out how to best leverage all of the different assets that we have, MCEDC being a core one of them, but we can't have everybody doing everything. And so I know that that's still, we're working through. We have a lot of new organizations and entities and a lot of new projects, and so figuring out exactly what that looks like and whose job is what is important. But we've got a really good roster. We got to figure out how to be a championship caliber team, and I think that's really how we take the county and our economic development to the next level. Speaking of that, page 46, the chart that was mentioned earlier, the dates that are on there are the start dates. As far as I can tell, they're not the completion dates.
No, that's correct. Ignore those dates. So with the update, that's part of the challenge. As we were talking about this the other day, some dates are in 6 months or would have been a year. Some are ongoing. Some are 5 years. Some are. So the dates,
I don't want to look backwards. I want to look forwards. But moving forward,
so the dates.
The purpose is to hold ourselves accountable. And we don't hold ourselves accountable when we start a project. We hold ourselves accountable when we complete a project.
Right.
So I think that's going to be an important part of, moving forward, of determining what is an appropriate, reasonable time frame. We don't want something that's unachievable, but it should be ambitious. It should. We should fail sometimes. If we're not failing ever, it means we're not pushing ourselves enough. We're setting the bar too low. But we need to have a bar. And we need to hold ourselves accountable to that. And the last thing that I'll say related to these updates, which I think are great, and I'm really happy about it, and I really appreciate the committee's indulgence here. I think it would be helpful if these conversations were structured moving forward based on the interest of the chair, but just a suggestion on the metrics. So here is the metric, here is the number we said we wanted to accomplish, here is the date we said we were going to accomplish it, here is where we actually are. Are we on track or are we not on track? Do we meet it or do we not meet it? At a certain point, I think these conversations should really be somewhat binary in terms of what we're talking about, and then they can be expounded upon to talk about the why. But the what should be the metric. It should be specific, it should be measurable, and I think you then can go through and then have a real sense of, are we making progress, are we not? What do we need to do in order to make a change? I think the council would benefit from that significantly, so I just make that suggestion.
Yes, that's exactly why I mentioned that the page on that line 46, page 46, the timeline needs to be updated and linked, aligned with the budget, exactly because of that point. So I look forward to that update in the next session that we're going to have with you, and all the updates that you're going to be sent to us as we move forward.
I want to clarify one thing. In terms of the budget updates, what I was referring to specifically was MCEDC. It may be a little bit more complicated or take longer to get all of the different entities together, whether it's transportation or DEP, and how their budgets tie into this. So I wasn't thinking about that until you just brought it up.
The more you can be aligned and specific to track progress, that's what we are requesting.
Okay.
And with specific dates, so we can measure and see, if, like Andrew mentioned, if you did not accomplish something in a particular deadline, we understand that, but we also need to be held accountable and see that we're actually moving forward with all our needs. So with that, do you have anything else to say? Or?
Thank you for your time.
No. I thank you for your time, and we look forward to continue working with you. The next item on our agenda is the CIP, Economic Development Projects. So I'm looking forward to the staff presentation on this. We can start whenever you're ready, okay? Thank you.
Good morning. Naeem Mia, for the record, legislative analyst with council. In front of you, you will be reviewing two CIP amendments for the economic development category of the CIP. The first one is the White Oak Science Gateway Redevelopment Project, which is it's changing the 6-year schedule, so there's an amendment there that the committee will have to approve expressly. And the second update is for the White Flint Redevelopment Program, which is reflecting a technical adjustment, not a 6-year change. So that is simply more of a FYI update. I'll start with the White Oak project. As background, this is a 280-acre development project that the county has entered into a public-private partnership with Global Life Sciences Development Corporation. It's part of the White Oak Science Master Plan that was approved in 2014. The funding for this project is primarily for the development of the road network that the developer will build and that the county will reimburse for. The county executive is recommending essentially a 3-year delay in the funding, pushing out $11.5 million into the beyond 6-year period, and thus creating fiscal capacity in FY23 and FY25, which, as you know, would help provide capacity for other parts of the CIP. The funding is GO bonds, which again is used in other parts of the CIP. The rationale for the delay, besides just creating physical capacity, is really the development. The private partner of the development has not moved forward, and we have no indication of what their timeline is. So staff recommendation is to concur with the executive's recommendation and to perhaps revisit further adjustments as we get closer to CIP reconciliation. There's a lot more background I have included in the packet. I will say the last update that the council had received was in July 2019, directly from the developer. At the time, they indicated that they were securing capital, identifying anchor tenants for the site, as well as were planning to begin preliminary engineering work for the road projects. To date, none of those activities have been confirmed to have occurred. I will also note that in September 2021, Bethesda Beat had an article that reported that site plan approval was needed for the road network, and that was going to happen soon. And I will also note that other parts of the master plan have moved forward. The HOC Hellendale project, which is not on the site, has been completed. CP Capital announced groundbreaking for their 390-unit townhome-style apartment project on Broadchurch, and the White Oak Town Center commercial development is currently in construction, if you've driven by there. So there's activity around the master plan, just not on the site. So, it might be staff recommendation would be to perhaps talk to GLDC directly and have them come to the committee and provide an update directly. And I'll stop there.
Do you have any comments on this?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Anyone?
I I appreciate the context, which is always important, and I've had a number of recent conversations with residents of East County, with folks who are part of the life sciences community, the emerging life sciences community, and they are frustrated, and I share that frustration, especially as we talked about, or I talked about North Bethesda in the previous conversation and the opportunity that is in North Bethesda, and we are waiting for the developer to show some progress before we provide additional public support. That's what this comes down to. There has been incredible public support provided to date, and we need to see something for that support. And so, as was noted, there are various plans working through the process, and as they work through the process, we can revisit this, but we need the developer and that community to show some progress, and then we'll come back. That's my pledge, and I know the district council member who's not here shares that same commitment too.
Councilmember Sales.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think one of the first excursions we had after our elections was to visit the White Oak Science Corridor to look at the master plan. We met with the group that's been championing this endeavor for, it's going on decades now, and we've appropriated millions of dollars to support this much needed investment. And so the same way that, you know, we have these hearings, that we have these meetings to delve deeper into some of the ways that we can better support or amplify challenges, that may be something we need to plan for in the future, to have the developer meet with us and let us know what the near-term potential is going to be for this site, and what other support, if any, is needed, or what alternatives we have in mind for this site. You know, the East County has depended on this particular project, and if there are other ideas that we need to start exploring something else for this site, and the much needed economic investments that are necessary to turn this into the vibrant, mixed use, transit dependent vision that we've called for. Just wanted to get a better idea of, you know, what recent talks you have, or how things are going, and what do you see as next steps for this particular project. Thank you.
Good morning. Greg Austin, Department of General Services. I will say at the onset that the county executive shares the council president's frustration at the lack of progress at this location, and so as Mr. Mia's staff packet notes in the paragraph preceding the recommendation, the county does have some flexibility, and so you've seen us moving the funding expenditures, and that's really the result of not having a schedule at this point. We can put in a request with GLDC for a revised schedule. We have suggested in the past to the committees that GLDC prepare briefings and come in and brief the council members on their progress and their efforts. I know that they do that in other and outside county government groups and LabQuest, for example, and provide regular updates, but we could certainly solicit one of those and bring that to the committee.
Thank you. That's all I have.
And you mean also bringing the actual, I'm thinking Jonathan, Glenn, the action applicant come in. I'm very familiar with this issue just because of my work on the planning board, and it's really frustrating. So I am officially request to have them, DGS and Jonathan, come in front of this committee, and I will make sure that the council member for District 5 is also present to get these updates, because we hear it everywhere. I'm not even in that district, and I hear everywhere constantly the lack of effort and So looking forward to that. I'm going to let Councilmember Balcom speak next.
Thank you. I think this dovetails very nicely with the presentation that we just had before. This is a economic development issue. This is why we need metrics. This is why we need to have these conversations. So I appreciate you coming and look forward to having another conversation with the owner. Are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve this, approve this request. Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Say aye. Can I just also thank Mr. Mia for coming to my office? This is our very first CIP request, and thank you for walking me through the packet. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Just one more update. The White Flint Redevelopment Program, as I noted, was a technical adjustment for prior year appropriations. The CE is recommending a reduction of $434,400 for lower than anticipated consultant costs. The funding source is White Flint Special Tax District. This is part of a plan to move staff charges in this project back into the general fund and to free up Special Tax District money for other purposes that would benefit the district directly. So again, it's a prior year adjustment, but staff is recommending reflecting that in CIP.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this.
Do I have a second?
Before we second, where's the money being appropriated to? Is it just going into general funds? Is it staying with the project and being used for something outside of the consultancy services?
It is, it's being reduced from the project, so it's being disappropriated.
Eliminated.
Yeah, and so it'll
Okay.
go back into
General funds for other
well, Special
projects.
Tax District fund. It'll stay in that fund.
Okay. Second.
All in favor, raise your hands. Motion approved. Second CIP item, is that? You. So that would be the Digital Equity Montgomery Connects item.
Thank you very much. This is the first time that this committee, the Economic Development Committee, has a chance to look at some of the impact that technology may have on our ability to see our residents and our businesses thrive using this new platform of technology. What you have in front of you is a change, a funding change in the program, but the really important thing, I think, is to begin to connect why is technology important in economic development. So I've asked my friends at TEBS to come and start the discussion. I've laid out 5 issues that we may want to go through. Madam Chair, I don't know if that's your pleasure. So the first one is where do you see technology fit? What is your vision for technology in our county? And I'll turn the floor over to Gail Roper, our Chief Information Officer.
Good morning, Gail Roper, CIO. I wanted to talk first about what we do. I think it'll help the committee to understand what TEBS actually does. We support and manage all of the business systems within the organization. So the ability for us to communicate externally to residents, constituents, developers, we own those systems. We also have an asset that we call FiberNet that is started as an institutional network for the county. It connects all of our buildings, Montgomery College, several other external regional organizations. But we've looked at that asset and found ways to further the value of it by beginning to do some connectivity in underserved communities. We've got a cadence of apartment complexes that are deemed as underserved that we have connected some, and we have funding to connect some additional areas in the county. And we use a lot of statistics and data to understand where people live and what kinds of connectivity is required throughout Montgomery County. So from our digital equity initiative, we really focus on 3 things. connectivity, meaning that they have access to the internet. Also literacy, that there are trainings available to individuals to use the internet, and then also computer devices. And this past year, and including part of this year, we have distributed 38,000 PCs to the community, to families and children. So we'll have a short visual. I think sometimes visual is worth 1,000 words. So we'll have a short visual to show some of the grassroots work that we've done.
The Department of Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, TEBS, has rebranded our digital equity efforts as Montgomery Connects. We've switched from many different identities to a single name to make it easier for the public to find the services they need. We're working with our community partners to build trust in digital equity and to attract grants and funding to supplement our efforts. Our strategy is to focus on the areas of the county where there is the most need and to target programs to close the racial and digital equity divide. To do that, we're distributing over 50,000 computers on long-term loan to low-income families to the areas with the most need. We are partnering with community hubs and organizations to enroll families in the ACP program to receive $45 per month off their broadband bill. We are bringing free or low-cost broadband to residents living in affordable housing developments. We brought outdoor Wi-Fi to 10 public libraries to make it easier to connect. We are providing digital equity technology training for seniors and youth. And we are working to have broadband extended to the Ag Reserve. So what's next? We're looking towards the future with virtual reality demonstration projects. We're building innovation partnerships with Ignite Hub, the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, and the University of Maryland Tech Extension Digital Literacy and Digital Navigator programs, and seeking more funding for digital inclusion training and device programs, and working with affordable housing developers to seek more grants to expand Montgomery Connect's MocoNet residential broadband and technology training. Montgomery Connects, powered by TEBS, bringing digital equity to all the county.
Thank you for that presentation.
Could we have a second video, please? This really says it all. This is a very short video, but I just think it is significant to our efforts.
Very important for you to have a Chromebook because overall, if you have a good grade, and I feel like Chromebooks are meant for researching, and if you research, you could get a better grade. And very important for you to have a Chromebook because overall, if you have a good grade, and I feel like Chromebooks are meant for researching, and if you research, you could get a better grade. And when you research more and more, I feel like you would have a chance to go to the best place for you. Learning more makes it better for your life. Like, let me tell you a reason. If you keep on learning, you might go to a specific college that you would like and live your life how you want to be. There's so many people in the world that don't have Chromebooks, and I think we should change that.
She was so cute.
That video just touches my heart. So that's the grassroots work. When we talk about technology and economic development, I mentioned that we own those internal systems that really are our communication channel to the public. I can say I've been on board now for 3 years. I came the month before COVID started, so we were also responsible for the COVID systems. But our systems are old, so we're in the process now of modernizing technology within Montgomery County. We've got 4 projects that are part of our current portfolio, and that would be the permitting systems project that we work with our developers externally. Our 311 call center, modernizing and including artificial intelligence into that system so that our residents are better responded to, and an applicant tracking system that will help us to recruit and retain employees. And then, of course, maybe I say one of our more significant projects would be a new website. So all of our website will be modernized in the cloud, and we'll have a better way to manage that data that is included in that website.
Can I ask you something very quickly? Maybe you mentioned this and I just skipped. It's great that we're delivering Chromebooks, right, for families in need. But what about when you say internet or access to the internet? Is it fast internet? Just because during the pandemic, I had 2 children in Montgomery County Public Schools, and I remember some of my kids' friends, even though they had internet, it wasn't fast enough, especially to have 3-4 kids in the same house doing at this point doing homework together. How's the process on that? How are we doing on that? Oh, can you please turn on the mic? You can just let it go. When you touch it, there you go.
Okay, tell the CIO how to use the mic. But, so yes, we have a carrier class network, and that's what we've been doing for the last several years is upgrading our connectivity so that these individuals have very fast connections.
Good morning. Joe Webster, Chief Broadband Officer in TEPS. So we have a program called MocoNet where we're delivering free internet access to residents of affordable housing. That service is 100 megabits by 100 megabits, and it includes in-home Wi-Fi. So it's designed and delivers service inside of the apartment unit and throughout the apartment unit. So the 100 megabit symmetrical is more than sufficient to support 3 or 4 or 5 people online, streaming, doing video meetings simultaneously. We also, FiberNet supports Montgomery County Public Schools, Montgomery College, all the county institutions. For Montgomery County Public Schools, we recently upgraded their network during pandemic when they started to go back to school and we're doing hybrid learning. We upgraded the network to 100 gigabit backbone network, which is very, very fast. And we've included or increased the speed of all the high schools to 10 gigabit connections and all the middle and elementary schools to 1 gigabit connections. And we just received a request in the last couple of weeks to increase the speed for 40 middle schools to 10 gigabit connections as well. So that's in process over the next several weeks to upgrade the speeds to the middle schools.
What about in the ag reserve? Just because I have heard from farmers specifically that the lack of connectivity has been an issue and affecting their business. What's the status there?
Sure. We've spent a lot of time over the years trying to expand and helping to expand broadband in the ag reserve through commercial providers and helping them with grant programs, etc. We've identified there are about 80, plus or minus 80 properties in the ag reserve that do not currently have broadband, wired broadband, internet access, or are not on a plan to receive it from either Comcast or Verizon in their current grant programs. So while there is still a problem, it's somewhat limited. Those 80 properties are not clustered together nicely. They're spread all over the ag reserve, so they make serving those last 80 rather difficult in terms of cost effectiveness.
So what's the plan to ensure that they have access to those 80 properties?
So we will continue to look for federal funding, state grants, and work with our commercial partners to try to expand access to those last 80 properties. We also make them aware of other potential options. So Starlink, which is a service, Elon Musk, internet access via satellites, very fast, via low Earth orbiting satellites. We made everyone aware of that and encourage residents who are in one of those 80 properties, if they need connectivity, apply for that in the short term. It provides also 100 megabit service to those properties if they're eligible and apply for that.
We'll make sure that, you probably heard me say this, but we're going to have a session just on agritourism. You may want to come along and just in case we have questions on technology.
Sure.
Sure we will. Do you have a question?
Sorry, so Mitsuko Herrera, Montgomery County Director, I just wanted to add on Joe's point. 70 of those 86 properties were included in a rural broadband grant to the state of Maryland submitted in December. We are waiting to hear back from that, but we think that it was likely to be a positive result.
All right, perfect, thank you.
I do. Are you continuing on? Do you have anything more that you're going to present?
No.
Okay, great. So thank you. I love the video. Love the little testimonial. Very adorable. So in looking through the slides and the information that you provided, and it's all very good. Thank you. One thing kind of stood out regarding the affordable connectivity program. And it seemed to me that what I saw, 65% of computer recipients subscribe to broadband and are ACP eligible, but 69% are not enrolled. I don't know if that is a discord on my end, or if it is something that discord that exists in the community, and what we're doing to try and educate people about the $45 subsidy that they're eligible for.
Yeah, it really is an educational process in the communication, marketing, that kind of thing. And I know that people who are in our programs now, there are flyers in multiple languages that go out, and I think the numbers are actually up from what they were in the past.
Is we've actually started in July that at all of the computer distribution events, besides the flyers that we have been providing, we have on-site support staff. If you're actually available this afternoon, we have an event across the street at 3 o'clock. There's
Great.
600 people registered to receive computers, so if you want to drop in, feel free if your schedule permits.
Is this on? Have you posted on social media?
The
No. Oh, you have to register before.
we register people before so that we make sure that we have computers for every person who's coming to show up.
Got it.
And that we don't end up having 1,000 people show up when we've got 600.
So the answer to the social media is clearly no, right? I was just,
Yeah.
I didn't know if you needed us to spread the word
No,
or
no,
see the good work that's being done, and clearly it's the latter. Okay.
Well, we received funding for 50,000 computers. We have 10,000 remaining. We would appreciate your support. Our initial, which has been very successful, we reached out to nonprofits. We tried to make sure that the people who needed the most were most in touch. We just put out another press release letting people know that we had the remaining 10,000 and that we wanted people to, if they haven't contacted us, to contact us.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you that we have a grant application pending. It is it's a different type of program, so it is only people who are eligible for ACP would be able to receive that, and it is one per address. So what we have also done is that we did a pilot event with HOC in which we sort of pitched the event as, come sign up for the broadband discount, and if you're eligible, you can get a computer. So that's kind of what we're going to end up transitioning. But in those in-person events, we have helped over 1,000 families register for ACP. We also had the White House come out with members of 3 different federal agencies. We were one of 14 sites that they are using to streamline that process, and we are hopeful that they're going to roll out some changes in March that make that process easier to use. And last I would just say is that one of the things that we discovered is when you ask these questions in these questionnaires, it's a mixed bag about whether people really understand the question that you're asking. But we have done a lot of events like with the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center where we're actually helping people enroll. We've done some of those at the senior centers. We would like to expand to do some of those in Mandarin in the next month. We do offer services on site in at least 3 languages. And then we have worked with different providers, so if we have a lot of Amharic speakers coming in, that we have extra volunteers and people to help them.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that. And clearly we know that there are certain communities that are hesitant to enroll and sign up for government services, clearly. And I read this morning that in Maryland, and particularly in Montgomery County, there are tens of thousands of Montgomery County public school students who are eligible for free and reduced meals but are not enrolled. And so there's a disconnect across the board. Wanted to elevate it, learn more about the program in the question within the answer, and I'll follow up and learn more about the events that you're having, not only today but in the future, to see how excited families are when they receive these computers. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's 2 next week in Germantown. So thank you for having 2 in Germantown. That's great. And I just wanted to follow up on President Glass's comment about the outreach. I think that looking at maybe our food distribution hubs as a way to help to get the word out. I know that other people have been looking at those hubs to help distribute because of the overlap of eligible parties might be the same. So that might be an option to look at.
We have engaged with the hubs. The Up County Hub is one of our strongest partners. We also partner with the it's the East County King's Chapel, and then there's one other one that I'm honestly forgetting at this moment. But they have been good partners for us as well.
Great. I have one more question, and then I'm gonna let Councilwoman Sales ask a question. Recently, we had Mr. Rich Madalino coming in front of the council, and I was going to ask this question to him, but I didn't have time and I didn't ask it, so I'm going to ask you. This whole new position that the county executive is asking, special assistant on digital work, and my understanding was to focus on certain things, but I hear you talked about a grant that it's coming in December that you're waiting for, dealing with the ag reserve, for example. Aren't you already doing this work? Like, what's the, I don't understand why we're asking, what the county executive is asking for a position when you are assigned to do this type of work. What am I missing here?
So we are a small team within we are a small team located in the IT organization. I think that what we are seeing with that position is just to give it more, to make it more visible, that we have more of an opportunity to communicate with at the federal level, and to provide support from the CEX's office. So that's as much.
But that's your job. You're already doing that, aren't you? I mean, you just told me that you're working on a grant for the federal government, right? So it makes no sense to me. I had to put it out there.
Well, one, as the director mentioned, there's always more work to be done. The other thing is that it's one thing to go after grants that you're already eligible for, but it's another thing behind the scenes before that to shape the grants so that we are eligible for more of them. As you've seen, there's a lot of push for rural, but there is just as much need in urban areas. And having somebody who can help shape that story. In addition, there's going to be more money that's needed from the state of Maryland that's than just what's coming from these federal grants.
Okay, I'm going to drop it there. Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, having attended the NACO conference over the weekend, the Farm Bill talks about the expansion of broadband, and I think the county executive was a bit forward-thinking in ensuring that those relationships are cemented and that they can understand the needs of Montgomery County through almost like an ombudsman or intergovernmental relations individual. And so as someone who represents the county at large and seeing the communication gaps that some of our communities experienced during the pandemic, I think that this is a push in the right direction to provide the infrastructure that people need to be more connected. And so we talked in our last session about metrics, and so we're getting people connected, and now how can we build upon this connection to now talk about other modes of accessibility, accessibility to not just the racial equity and social justice, closing that gap, but the racial wealth gap. And are we ensuring that our residents who are now connected to this wealth of information are now leveraging this access to learn more about online banking? I see that there's a literacy component, anything about financial literacy for these communities, for these households. How are we working with our banks, the county's Economic Development Corporation, MCPS, to further build upon this newly created access point to communities and how are we further, trying to ensure that they're not just, they have the device to access the community, but now they have the information and the tools to really play a role in how they are accessing the abundance of resources this county has. I don't know what happens at these events where we're giving away the computers, who else we're partnering with at these events, but it would be good to start thinking more intentionally about the partnerships that we're creating. We have too many resources at our fingertips that we should ensure. Councilmember Balcom talked about the food distribution sites. We did a kickoff for the tax season with VITA, and we had, some of the financial empowerment centers. We had our banks there. Social services should be there to capture any gaps and people who haven't been able to access any social service benefits. I know we have the UBI program that was piloted. How many of those residents now have access to these devices? If we can be, more intentional about thinking about these communities and these individuals who are now getting this device to be better connected for work opportunities. Let's see how else we can create these events to ensure that we're meeting people where we're at and we're taking advantage of, you said 600 people, 300 people, or 600 people?
There's 600 registered for today.
Yeah, we should take advantage of that, having that many people here and the abundance of resources that the county has to offer to ensure that they know what else there is to offer, not just a computer, but access to Montgomery County's abundance of resources should also be part of any further initiatives that are happening. Thank you.
So we have, it's a great idea, and we have tried to implement that. One of the things that we are, because these grants were primarily in partnership with the public libraries. They were entity eligible, and so we have really tried to educate people about the great resources that are available at the library, including their entrepreneurial centers. We provide information about Senior Planet Montgomery, which is our technology training for people 50 and older. And in that, we do include online banking. We include information about how you can save money through digital ordering. We have a money management class that helps people with budgeting as well. We have also had an entrepreneurial class. So we had people learn how they could do, so we had a woman who learned how to sell used baby clothes online, or she launched that business. We have also received a grant in part with the work of the Chief Broadband Officer from Truist Bank, and we use that to both provide infrastructure and training to people. And we partner with WorkSource Montgomery. We provide computers for the people who are part of their Code Goes Home program, which are people who are recently released from the Detention Rehabilitation Center, and so they have a computer waiting for them. And we are also partnering with HHS in people who are coming in for social services. They have found that the computer is a game changer. One of the things that we're really trying to do is to essentially provide the key that unlocks a lot of the potentials, and so that's why a big focus that we've been doing is to help people who are operating those programs who have said to us that their barrier is someone doesn't have the computer or the device or the internet connection, that we've got that, and then by working with them that they can then continue that partnership now in a more effective way.
And can I?
Yes, go ahead.
May I add to that? So some of the directives I've given is to work more with the private sector. So we're looking to do some partnerships with Microsoft on the Girls Code, even a program for tots to begin to learn how to use technology. So we really do want to move more into public-private partnerships and having corporations to sponsor some of our initiatives. You made an excellent point. It takes resources, of course. And I think that, within the next few years, as we establish and develop this program, we'll have more to share.
Yes, and my daughter actually took part in I don't think it's in existence anymore, but it was the Sonia Kovalevsky program to encourage more girls entering into the STEM field. She also did Girls Who Code. And the younger you get these kids interested in the STEM field, the more the increased likelihood that they are to continue that engagement. And so anything we can do to further those connections and anything we can do to leverage this resource across any of our other departments and industries, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you for that. If there are no further questions, I'm looking for a motion on the CIP amendments on digital equity.
So moved.
All in favor, raise your hands. The amendment is passed. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to continue working with you. This session is adjourned.